Well, a very good evening and a warm welcome to Patkomafani Conversations. Every Thursday, it is the slot that we call the SA leaders in the conversations. And you know, part of why we love to celebrate the SA leaders is precisely for that, to get to learn from them, get to celebrate their achievements, to get to pick up why they are called legends in their own respect across the spectrum. And it is my privilege and honor this evening to welcome Mkhuseli Khusta Jack. Mkhuseli Khusta Jack, for the sake of those that probably will be hearing him talk for the first time, he is a political activist. He is a freedom fighter. He was detained, for his political convictions. He is a businessman. He is an author. And I think Ubra Costa, because of his good heart and his generosity, I can also boldly say he is a philanthropist as well. But of late, Bracusta then looks deep into his political awareness and is troubled by the plight of Nelson Mandela Bay, Port Elizabeth, Youthnik, and Dispatch. And he then, has started a movement which is called AIM. And he will talk to us about AIM and how AIM can change fortunes around at Nelson Mandela Bay. Khusta Jack was born on a white-owned farm in the Eastern Cape, and his family experienced evictions. They were evicted from their home. His family was split up. They were wandering between different relatives with nowhere to live legally. And those were the dark days of apartheid. So the young Kusta then had a fierce, very fierce yearning to go to school. And you'll see how life balances itself and meeting obstacles at every turn. He never gave up. So there's a great amount of the spirit of resilience we're going to be talking about. Reaching high school in Port Elizabeth, and against all odds, his drive finds a new focus, freedom for his people, while he's trying to attain his education. And then he develops another passion, and that's the passion for freedom for his own people. Through 4 years of activism, his resolve never wavered. Khusta Jack became a respected leader in the democratic movement. And today, as a successful businessman, he is as outspoken as always. Bangaba kuthethwa ngenye inkokheli eMzantsi Afrika that are very outspoken, kuthethwa ngobra Khusta. And it's my privilege actually to host him today on South African Leaders. Mkhuluwa, Mandikwamkele, it is such a profound privilege to have you on Patkomafani Conversations.
Chochube Kochawe, thank you so much for this golden opportunity. I am really appreciating it. I take it very seriously because I think this is what is supposed to happen, where we are reminded about our own people at all times. And I understand that you have just been fortunate to be pulled by yourself or drawn in your lotto into this. I am grateful. Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, thanks, Mkhuluwa. I think when one hosts a great legend like Khusta Jack, one asks the question, where do we begin? And usually, the safest answer is to begin right at the beginning, to start right at the beginning. When people see Khusta Jack today, in his blended family, that's another thing actually that I hope we will be able to touch on, what it means to have a blended family, to have a wife who's not from a Lokshini or a farmer, but being a white lady. Wow. And we will touch on that as well. But Mkhuluwa, to grow up a farmer and you're tossed around and the family is evicted and the family is looking for a place to occupy. And even if the family would occupy that place illegally, how did this all, at what stage were you aware in terms of self-awareness about the ills that were going on around you and your family? Please take us through that painful journey.
Well, Chawe, I think that up to the point when we were removed from the farm, uprooted, I was, I believe, living a very normal life, a life of freedom, a life of plenty, a life of everything, because sasinenkomo, and we had cattle, we had animals, we had our own chicken. We could produce our own food, so there was no stress. I didn't know at the time that there were these difficulties that were I was to discover on the night we were told that we must get out of the house of the farm within 24 hours. Before that time, I was just like all other boys running, trying to get on with amatole, which was a responsibility of a boy of that age. You sort out amatole wena, and so on and so on. But I was shocked as we were forced to pack every little thing that we had and get on the back of a ox wagon to cross that chilly old bridge of the Gamtus River by night, because where we were going, we were not supposed to be shown or be seen by the farmer of that place where our uncle was going to hide us in our house, in her house, in his house, which happened actually for months. We had to siphume ngenantsika ngomgalelo, like because my uncle had his own about 6 kids and we were 8 children. So one of us was left, didn't come to stay with us because he was older. The rest of us were packed in this house on those little farm homes. So my uncle, in order not to annoy the farmer, made sure that we take turns to go and play outside, so that there's no crowd that is going to be visible to the farmer. That because of threat to his stock or food or anything, because black kids, by this time I learned that we were really now studying for the first time to hear these kinds of things, that we must be hidden and that there was something wrong with us. But before that, I didn't know at all. And yeah, it shocked me.
And you're mentioning your uncle, and by the way, I did have an opportunity to go through your book, a couple of chapters, the book To Survive and Succeed, from farm boy to businessman. But in the early chapters of this book, Khusta, you also mention something, as you now allude to the fact that your uncle was giving direction, and where was the father? Did you have any relations with your father? And because sometimes I must say I'm asking this question because I admire how you lead your own family. I admire how you lead your own children. Yeah.
Maybe that's the very reason that I didn't have that father you talk about, because I never had the father, if you like. I've never met the guy said to be my father, or the person who happened to be my father. And unfortunately, I never saw him anyway until he died. When he died, I wasn't even close by. Yeah, he was way away from where I was. So I don't know him. So because I had, we were 5 brothers, and my uncle got his own sons, about maybe 5 also, and himself being the figurehead, and a whole host of other uncles and brothers. I think I got so protected that I never even felt that the need even to ask, where's my father? Because I never had a need to think that I was insecure, that I would need his support. Although when Chawe, I'm not clear as to why my mother kept me away from my father. But I suspect that maybe he, whatever that relationship that led to my being around, it may have ended dramatically or whatever, but I was never told. And I tried to find out, but my mother wasn't prepared to give me any information pertaining to that. And of course, I never had time to ask that either because I was happy. So uh, I came later on to understand about my father. After I came back from England, I was already married. I had children. And let me put it this way, Chawe ngesixhosa. Ndondliwa ke kulo mzi wamaqwathi. Ndondliwa, ndakhuliswa, ndafundiswa, ndoluswa, ndafunela umfazi, ndafunela imisebenzi, ndafunela ezindlu ndihleli kuzo namhlanje ngaloo maqwathi lawo. So umpinga ke lona ke yena, hayi Shem, there is nothing I can write about him and say this is what he did for me, etc., etc. Although I cannot blame him because I suspect that my mother maybe didn't want me to meet with him, and and that's it.
Wow, wow, Kulu. Our stories tend to be similar to a certain extent when it comes to Inamayunga Mazi.
I know your story in this book. That's what it's a copy. I could. But if I want to, because you plagiarize my story. Because you were seemingly enough. I mean, you have a family that's near back in you had a good time with. So then, but I must say, the better way out. I know you think that your story, but now, okay, on a serious note, why it is important that we do this, child, that I write about that and talk about what as I'm doing here. And the way now where you have told your story, it is an important thing because Maninzi or Khusta Jack about enough confidence to face this life reality of being a black person in South Africa in the 60s and 50s and so on, going back. So that thing, when you speak, when you say this story, you talk a story of so many children. And those children must know, Guti, as we were told, you got all the values. What difference will that make to bring you because akushoti needs? And that thing molds you and develop the moral values which will carry you in life. And this is what I think is what I did throughout my life. When I knew, Guti, as I was told, remember what is right will always be right. Whether unotata okanya unatata, whether unomama okanya unamama, but as long as there will be good people who will be around you, who will have a positive influence in your life, make the best of it and you won't go wrong. And I think that's what I found in your book. And that's what actually I have been trying to tell people at every opportunity. Yabolo stone sizani ichobi zabe no because yathanda bebengayenzi bona lento yokuthi bebeye bamangaliswe by the brazenness in my part, but all the time as a senior leaders bathi Khusta, keep on doing this because you are not speaking for yourself, you are speaking for many other children abane inferiority complex As a result, iba depress abanye bade bophelela ebhotileni yotywala as a consequence of fighting abanye bade commit suicide. Now, it needs into yoba kuthethe abantu who have gone through this fire and show ukuthi no, at the end of the day, it depends on what you do with your current situation. That is what is important. Not in the over whether you were born under the bridge. Kukho laa nto ithi impukane, unyana wempukane iyayibuza uba omnye umfo ubuza unyana ubuza utata, tata impukane kanye nizalelwa phi na? Uthi utata izalelwe emgxobhozweni. Umntana uyabuza ke ngoku, ke tata xa ibhubha impukane ibhubhela phi? Uthi hayi ifela elubisini, elucwambini lobisi, yabo, kwi-cream. Now, the point yalo tata is that it doesn't matter where the fly was born. What matters is where the fly wants to go and end up. And in life here, to get stronger, that is what I think we need to do. As you say, you say you admire me, but I admire people like you. There are so many of my other friends that I saw that were so good. This is what I will do one day. And he asked there, Chawe, bandihamba Main Street, naphina nase-shopping complex, ndidibane ne-couple encinci ehamba nabantwana bayo, kuthengwe i-ice cream nezapakithana zee-chips ze-R4.50. I will never pass without making the remarks as positive as it is. I love this because this is the thing. The children, when you take them out to the beachfront, to Happy Valley, or to any place where apho bafumana khona be-free, bonwabile, nomama notata, bekhotha la chocolate, okanye benyolana neza chips. Do you know the memory, a positive that remains in their mind, is far better than anything you can do to take this child to Disneyland? Zenithi xa nibuya nonkosikazi, unkosikazi ujonge ngapha, wena ujonge ngapha efestireni, akuthethwa kuqunjelwene, because you know that you have destroyed, you have finished everything that you had, because uyozixhoma kwinto ongafunekanga ungene kuyo. Whereas you don't understand the value to your children is that packet of chips. Lay R5. The child, for as long as that happiness is carried from home to a Hemingway, Hemingway, with that happiness, and everybody gets into the house, there is nothing that can beat that. And that is what people like us, sibe nayo ukuthi sibe nalelaka sinayo, because things could have been very bad for me. Things could have been very bad for you, for all many other South Africans that were lucky like us. We cannot waste that Nansika. Lord, you ever seen that? We must use it to the best of our ability to lift, All it must be about lifting the other man who could believe, they cannot take this burden, it's too heavy. We must make that burden as light as we can.
And that's the whole essence, Nkulua, of telling one's story. The fact that, can you believe what would have happened in South Africa if all of us who had that, as you call it, lalaga, if all of us inspired just one person, if each and every one of us inspired one person who is discouraged, despondent, and disappointed with expectations in life, and they need somebody to lift their spirit, they need to know that any social ills can be beaten and you can rise above any circumstance, any situation. And abantwana abaninzi bayayidinga loo nto. When they look at Khusta Jack's story, when they look at Patco Mafami's story, and any other person ongamazi utatakhe, then they will know ukuthi, then there is no way that I can disappoint my dreams. Then there is no way that I can quit my greatness and disappoint my greatness, because all of us are born with that thing, that great thing in us that makes us stand up when we have fallen. It is that particular greatness. But Nkulua kakhulu, I need us to talk about how you then rose with all those social ills, ukhulele farm and ngamabhulu, no place to stay in a family. Your identity also was confusing. With it had questions, but you were content with what mama and your uncles would do for you. And then at what stage then were you made to be politically conscious and then take this stand? So Guti, now I'm going to fight for abantu abamnyama. I'm joining the ranks zabantu abazawulwela abantu abamnyama. Because then we saw you Kopeko. We saw you everywhere where there was, inchukumo yokukhulula umuntu omnyama in South Africa. And you even got arrested.
Yeah, look, first of all, I was, like I said, I came from a family where there was no literature, no radio, no newspapers. I told the story in a book where my brother, my elder brother, who was not educated at all, but funny enough, he put a tattoo on my hand, which is written Elvis, all right? Where he got to learn how to write Elvis, we don't know. But anyway, that's what he did. He put the tattoo on me. There was nobody educated. There were no books at my home. There was nothing, all right? And there was no political conversations. The conversation at my home were to do with the bread and butter issues, the survival. Everybody, have you done your work? Milk. Have you done the milking? Have you gone to support somewhere else where you're gonna get a little bit of money? If you get the money, we're gonna use it for. It will be contributed towards sugar or coffee or extra umgubo and those kinds of things. So I grew up in that way. So there was no political teaching for me. There were no people talking politics at the time, except that what I was seeing as I was growing up was a bullying, and I hated bullying generally, without any understanding of politics. As a result, amongst the young people I was with, I was the weakest because I was suffering from asthma. And strangely, I was always the one that would pick up a fight with dangerous bullies. And it was just a natural sense in me that there's no way. If there's a bully, for example, if we were going to go, the guys wants to buy Kool-Aid. I don't know whether you know Kool-Aid. And the people say,
Yes, I remember Kool-Aid.
because you're gonna bring a belungu, you're gonna be naughty and go to the wrong door when they used to be non-white, and I will grab the money and I will go straight to the wrong door. And in most cases, I'll come out with kunyu all over the place, the child, because I was no and he's missing. But Yafunugula was ready to fight. I knew I have no chance in hell to win any fight against it, but I was ready for Makuzumtu as on better and so on, and we fight. But sometimes they abandoned. I was so weak that even the bullies of the time sometimes felt that shame, and they will push me to the ground and so on, and that's it. But I will still be a happy man because I've done something. I've done something. I don't care. It wasn't about winning, man. It was about saying this is wrong, and I did that. And I did that right through. But when I came to the city here, okay, I thought I will arrive in Port Elizabeth and get a school nicely by whatever. But the Kuchwe class in, because I did not have what they call my name in a family card. Then the teacher said, sorry guys, those who are not on the family cards of their homes, they must get out. So the laws were such that but it was at that point that I met a lot of other people who were like me, because at some point, coming from the farms, I would have thought that there were times when I thought apartheid was designed for my family, the Jack family. Not everybody else. But I was shocked to come. When we were kicked out, we were about 400. And funny enough, Patko, today, each and every one of that 400 men and women, those students at the time, they will support me at any given time. From that moment when I said to them, Umna, I would rather go to jail than go back to the life of farm slavery. And then from that moment, that is when I made what appeared later on to be construed as being politics. But before that, I didn't know anything. But because the Hohozela is Teta Galama Pass, and then that is how I started to get slowly. That is before 1976. So by 1976, I was already, although confused, because remember, also, I was also thinking that the homeland leaders were great guys. You know? I was, because I mean, or driver was just good enough for me. I didn't care whether you call him a puppet leader or a homeland leader, because there were no black people. Abanjalo Esbaziyo. So where I was pretty sure that going out of control. So I was just sure, Uti, I am just going to participate and listen later on. And the politics evolve kakuhle ke ngoku. Ndacaciselwa ngabantu abazibhetele into yoba no, these homeland guys are not good. Did you hard but zicriticize abelungu zistrongo? Kuthiwe kumaya andikeva nix. We're not sure at the time about Nelson Mandela or even ANC or A or PAC. Okay, fine. Ndimamela nje le ndithethwayo ndiqonda iinkokhelo ezikhoyo zirayithi phambi kwam ezimnyama binxiba iqhina ndithetha kamnandi iyakhumsha idinamisa abelungu. That was good enough for me. And as you know that they will appeal to me because they would have denounced the past law. Wonke umuntu omnyama used to denounce it.
Correct.
So yeah. I saw OKD as great leaders and so on and so on. But slowly, they see conscientize and explain, but no, this group is not good, and so on and so on.
Sure. Maybe two more questions, Mkhuluwa, before Sisondele Kungontonga, where conversation here tonight. Who are these stalwarts in the structures, the UDF EBAI, that embraced you? And now you then carved a niche and took hold of imikhala yokukhokela. Because I believe that for every crisis, God always appoints a man. I believe that for every era or decade, he always have a liberator of people. And imigushuzo yenu ningamahrotman A2 in the mid-70s, leading up and guiding us. And I remember we were very young, Tina, we fought Beaufort Youth Congress, and we would get the cues from Ibeiko. And when we were fighting lendo fundiswa Africans in mathematics, Veskende, agriculture, Lanbo. And there must have been probably abantu ababezizanga zomzabalazo kwi-structures zaseBhayi okhulele kubo politically. That's the first part that I would want us to establish. And then secondly, wabanjwa, wachargwa, wagwetywa, yaba lixesha elingakanani, and then you came back. And then we're going to move closer now to why I also believe that Khusta Jack, with the aim for change, could be the right person that would take Nelson Mandela out of the quagmire it finds itself in. So let's just go back to those two issues. The issue of how then you were groomed by who politically, with structures of Zabalazo, Ebai, and your detention.
Yeah. Jared, what happened? He struggled. See, Hambe, he phases, give phases. Yeah, abantu today, especially abantu behlekisa ke ngoba hayi yo but small things yabo. I don't believe in that nonsense of telling people that don't do this thing because you're too small, don't do that, you are this and that. I don't believe that. That would never work with me. You can say it to anybody else, and if I can convince that person to don't listen to him, we have lahlekisa. I'm telling you, I will convince you, but there's no such thing. But to start with, you started from 1976. There were very few abantu abakhulu who were involved in the struggle, except abefundisi, yabo. So abefundisi, they were leading oratory. They were making speeches, the priests, and they were burying our people, and they were making great, inspiring comments or speeches, although some of them were hiding what they were saying, but it was always something that gave us that strength that we needed at the time. When you look at it today, what was that person talking about? What is to write home about it? But you don't understand, Uguti, the little thing those guys said at the time was so crucial in building confidence in us to fight. But so this youth, there were no abantu abakhulu basekuhlaleni abaninzi who identified with the children, especially after 1976. But later, and then as a consequence of that, the direction of the struggle, ngelaa xesha, was so ibheka ngapha nangapha, this way and that way. It was just a chaos all the time. But what happened later on, some people within that group of 76 started to perfect, some of the senior leaders of that time started to perfect leadership roles and started to work towards influencing people and influencing other people. But come to by late 1970s, by the time before Yishwa Kosas, by that time, which was the first time in South Africa that others stood up with Abotozi Bota and others and rose to mobilize Abantabakulu. That was the first time, it was seen for the first time since the banning of the ANC in the 1960s. Before that, there was no such thing where you will find Abantabakulu going to a protest meeting, okay? Now, slowly out of those people developed quite a number of people. Some of them developed through the trade union movement and so on. And it is all those people who started to guide us. And fortunately, number two, one thing, other thing that happened during that time, around 1979 to 80, it was the release of the previous batches of the detainees from Robben Island that were locked up in the 1960s. They started to come. Although they themselves were banished and so on, it was very tough for them. But slowly, they're whispering and identifying some leaders, and they will speak to them, even if, and to put us in our different specialities, okay? For example, Umna, I have always been known I'm a capable organizer, and I had three things they wanted. They wanted eloquence, all right? And they wanted bravery, and they wanted principle. I could add, and discipline, and honesty. They got all of that from me. So if you listen to people like Abo Comrade Uyina, one of the decorated comrades as Puma Abebai, Zomkondo Wesizwe, he said at the funeral, he was explaining exactly the point that you are asking. And then he said, Mkhuseli was having everything that we need, but one thing where we will not deploy him is on the underground activities because of the way from the point I wanted to get things done. And in their opinion, they felt that I was going to endanger the whole team. So I must be kept away from that. I must just stick with the mobilization, which I mastered. And nobody in South Africa, I can tell you that, nobody in South Africa can dispute that. Not at all. I was the most effective mobilizer of people, youth, old, and everybody, rural and urban people, okay? As a result, you were talking about PACO. When PACO was formed, PACO was the first youth congress to be formed here, aligned directly with the ANC, openly. No other such youth existed in this country. And I was the one that went to launch the Soweto Youth Congress in Johannesburg at the Regina Mundi. Go and ask Duma. Duma Nansika, he was sitting on that stage with Duma Kubuli. No, Zinzi Mandela, they were there. I was a key speaker there and speaking to the whole nation and told them that the plan that we're going to do and what we're going to do against apartheid, I set time frames, okay? And those time frames were followed, all right? Because the thing is this, and then we went to East London. As you say, and the comrades at that time, since borders, there was no such thing. The comrades are saying, when they needed us, when we needed them, they were always here because the comrades are saying, they were strong as honor in ANC tradition. You see, although they were not as perfect anger in your oratory of making speeches. That is the reason why I was arrested in February 1982 ngamasiskai esikolweni eWongalethu. When I was at Wongalethu, I was a darling. I was known by all the students, not for politics, because I played rugby there and I wanted to be famous in rugby. But I feel the comrade, no. Oh, comrade, not see a trainer. Did you comrade? No, and fool me out head. That and that was the end. And the last day I was in a classroom. The following morning, everybody by a city hall, 19 February 1982. So we by that time the Emonti, also another good thing. Emonti yainama comrade amaninzi ANC paya. Yabo, very disciplined people. Yabo, oh Joe Marty, and a whole host of comrades as South, and they guided the youth Yasemonti, not only there, but even there, I was taking instruction with their behavior. It was a great moment. We were well thought. That is why I don't understand why people want me to do things as wrong when actually we were so well schooled by these guys. Yeah? These were geniuses. All over. And as later on, Sanelaka wafika Henry Fast. Aye, my brother. Ufazi, the only comrade that walked straight to the platform, the only leader in this country, Robben Island, straight the platform with the kids, and he led you from the front. What an inspiration. Remember, Ufazi is the first person to go and get military training in Addis Ababa. Read Mandela's book. Abantu must read books. Books are important. You know what? When I was reading your book, I was just hoping to say to people, you know what? If people read, read each and everything. For example, I could take for granted certain things here. I love when I read your book, Come Against Jet, no Vuka, no Paulo Grootboom, and other people and so on and so on. These are the kinds of things that are inspirational because reading teaches you values in you. And that's what we did. So we had those great leaders. When Fazi and his wife, Mufas, together bangeni. Lonely from 1976. She didn't care. But we had that flood again. We have flood years of comrades. zasi nantsika kwi-discipline, yabo, okokuba you don't break i-discipline. I-discipline, you mustn't break it without a reason, yabo. For example, if bakuthiwa apha kuzawuphungwa kube kanye, akunavela nje ndivumele into yoba ndithi ndiyinkokheli ndibone ukwathi ephunga kayi-6 apha without an explanation into yoba hayi Bra Khusta, kaloku kuye kwafika iingxowa zeswekile kunye nomngqusho ovele eKenya, umbona, I mean ikofu evele eKenya, ngoku we got enough. But before even we do that, even if that's true, let's have a meeting first and take and analyze the bags zekofu ekhoyo. Sibale into yoba singafumana zibe ngaphi na ikhaphu ke ngoku xa umntu wonke endaweni ibe nguwe otya eziyi-6 ngoku, so that everybody can have 2.5 yabo. Mhlawumbi ke basiyaqonda uba we can have more, another bags are coming, siyinyuse ke zibe 3 iiqawupi zekofu ngemini kumntu ngamnye. That is how you govern people. You can't govern people utshintshe imithetho nje halfway ngendlela ongayaziyo. I'm telling you, once you do that, you destroy the whole thing, and you will
How much of your background, Mkhulu, particularly I remember in the mid 80s. I remember in the mid 80s, bekukhali necklace, but against in necklace, bekukhali consumer boycott. Now, in consumer boycott needed a lot of discipline and mobilizing. The skills zokumobilizer besiziva thina izinqi zenu sikobhofolo ndoba Khusta Jack eBhayi. This is how they've organized a consumer boycott. The skills from that and your experience, Mkhulu, are you hoping that his credentials can redeem in Nelson Mandela Bay today? Siyayigudla ke ngoku lento siya kwi-aim ke ngoku apho siya khona.
Yes. Look, I see people in South Africa are so cocky sometimes in our thinking. Ingqondo zethu zi-upside down. Kangento into eyoyikisayo uthi omnye umntu after Polokwane, abantu abamnyama who were geniuses, especially ANC people, because ANC was known to have been the most I don't want to use intelligent, but ngabantu abekwazi ukwenza i-analysis proper. Analysis means that you take decisions. Ungakwazi uba le decision ibe ne-loopholes ngapha nangapha, yabo. So abantu abakhulu njengoba ndisitsho idaba lizoba ne-direction ngosuke kufika abantu abakhulu kuthi. Before that sasiba busy nje like busy fools, yabo. You can be busy. Uyayazi busy fool. I-busy fool akho nto igqibayo, akho nto iyenzayo. Ubuyibone sesindibheka into ekona uyibone seyiphaa phezulu ungayazi ukuthi nathi seyijinga apha ngumntu uyoyika bayizawo. But ayizodiyiwe because i-busy fool does not complete anything. Now, what has happened now? This is what has been inculcated into our young people to operate like busy fools. Whereas we shouldn't do that. What we should do, we should operate in a way that we get things done. You know, once things get done, there's going to be good results, and they're going to give direction and purpose. And everybody is going to have pride of purpose, not later this thing of because everybody is doing anything he likes. There is no. So the youth, what I'm saying, we are directing the Nansika aim now about integrity movement. We have a reason why we put integrity there. Integrity, when you call for it, you will want to see it all the time. It will not disappear from your eyes. Khusta Jack now speaks about integrity. I can tell you, when I get out here, I'm going to be so scared. Because if bandigenza into mhlawumbi ndichitha amanzi apha ithi inkosikazi xa ibuza uba ngubani uchithela amanzi ndithi hayi andiyazi noba nguzakumi and so on, immediately izawuthi hey mfondini le integrity uthetha ngayo ingenaphi na le behavior yakho yabo. So we need to create a setup where the integrity becomes an integral part of our lives. That is what Thabo Mbeki tried to do when he spoke about moral regeneration. Yabo? When he spoke of the African Renaissance, it's a pity that the first thing about Masepulukwana about destroyer, it was the African Renaissance. What for? I mean, I asked a Nigerian ambassador last year in Parliament, what do you think? What is your thing that you think about as a way to what the worst one was to move the African Renaissance? I couldn't understand how these South Africans were thinking. I mean, what was such an important thing? The whole of Africa was looking at the African Renaissance as we were moving towards that moral regeneration of our nation, of our continent, by Bulala Yonke. And through this,
Nkuluwa ndiyafuna ukuyilandela lento eno Thabo Mbeki phakathi. Did Thabo Mbeki indeed come before his time? Were we ready for Thabo Mbeki after Madiba?
Yes, we were. Look, I mean, obviously, Thabo Mbeki should have, he and his team, they should have organized a succession process. Yeah, okay. But even so, the ANC, because Thabo Mbeki is not the only brains that I respect in the ANC. There were so many. There are still so many. And these people, what they should have done, they should have made sure that they got a representative. At that time, even Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, in my opinion, would have been a great leader for South Africa at that time. But then we messed that up. And then Sapela Siglemego Sigui. The South Africans, even now, we're not part of South Africans, in my opinion, as somebody else was telling me, what happens in us is a thinking ability. And as a result of us lacking that thinking ability now, hence, we believe is wrong. For example, South African, many of our people in the last 10 years, you can tell them a lie, which is blatant. Like, for example, if I say to you, I Suga, Utito Mboweni can make sure that every family gets 10,000 rand a month, I'll be a hero tomorrow because people will believe that it's true. Whereas when I say to them, no, you cannot do that, Saba bankrupt, abantu will never understand what I'm talking about. But in their book, you see, as a result, now we populists now in this country are feeding on that ignorance on us, which we invite ourselves. Yeah. So I am saying to you, Thabo Mbeki was the best thing that we had, and we should have had a leader that was going to carry his plan to the future. Yeah. Now these people, but they criticize his growth plan. Okay, I don't join them. I will never do that because they are wrong. They are wrong. Why, if they are right, why haven't they implemented any of their own, which they have created themselves? Sure. Policy. Yep. They got the one created and authored by the very president. He doesn't even know it. It's an orphan. The NDP, National Development Plan. They could, it was theirs after Pulukwan. All of them, they didn't even try. Why didn't they try? Let's agree with Thabo Mbeki's policy was new liberal, as they say. They like to put in and see that appears why. But let me tell you, nothing new liberal about that. It's just a populist talk. What it was growing the economy and making sure that the revenues of the state increases. And those revenues of the state were going to be deployed into the RDP program, because you couldn't do the RDP program without money, as you are going to see now that we are not going to even be able to save SAA, no ESCOM, no all of that. But then the point I'm making is this: yes, Thabo Mbeki was correct. We should have followed the pattern, and South Africa would have been the Africa that the whole world, not the joke the laughing stock that we are today. Let me tell you this: if anyone tells you, we are respected by anybody in the world, we have just been.
Nkuluwa, when you talk of a laughing stock, and I'm glad that you came to that. When you talk of a laughing stock, here is a municipality, one of the big metros that we have in the country, after the city of Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ikapa, eThekwini. Then you have Nelson Mandela Bay, named after a man whose reception you organized in that big rally in Motherwell. When Mandela came for the first time to Nelson Mandela Bay, you organized that rally. Now, the Nelson Mandela Bay is a laughing stock. How are you going to change that? You mentioned integrity. You mentioned the integrity. The integrity we find in Khusta Jack, can we find it with other people? Can we turn it around and say this is a value system, integrity, esifunayo, to take that municipality back to be a top and well-run machinery?
Yeah. Popko, the first thing that we will do once we get elected, which we are going to be elected, by the way, this mission, I can tell you, I'm going to drop everything that I have. I am prepared to end up the Ambestrato in Genyao, as they said when I left Polokwane, that what will happen to me? I'll walk next to my shoes. No, that wasn't going to be like that. Now is the time that Khusta Jack is budgeting to walk, and even if it means that I will sleep under the bridges of this metro, I'm going to do that, because I am going to bring leadership with integrity and credibility into this thing, made up of the finest young people we can get in this metro, like we were to those elder brothers, leaders of ours, Abongoyi, Nobani. I have just amassed a number of young people, which you will see. They are skilled. They are far better than your Khusta Jack and the Patko Mafani of the 1980s. These ones, they are graduates already at 21. I don't need them to have any decorations of the battle of this and the battle of that. What I need them to know how to fix the pothole. I want them to be able to know how to make sure that electricity, I want them to be able to know how to clean the metro and secure the properties of the people of the metro, and secure and put every resident of the metro in safety. And I'm drawing all these people from all races. Everybody who got a skill to achieve this objective is going to be part and parcel of my war room. We are going to go to the residents and request them to give us a mandate. When they give us that mandate, we will not, as is Obadanis, we'll show them that we act with a purpose. Remember, this time around, the good news is that with our team, is that about Khusta Jack now are capable. I have 25, more than 26 years experience of operating at the top class blue chip businesses, where corporate governance is the Bible. I have gone through that, and we have employed thousands and thousands of people, and through that, we've managed to keep those people employed simply because we stick and applied the rules and the regulations without favor or any reason. I don't do that. What I do, where I am, I will never go to tell that's bad management. What you do with the staff, like the administration, we will make it function properly by motivating our savings We will not allow umuntu ono standard 2 or pataba umuntu on degree. No, that's not going to happen. That thing, once you do that, you demoralize the whole lot. And then we are teaching about discipline. Wonke umuntu believes into unonyuka bephezu komnye. And even if, unless you are exceptional, there are technical roles whereby a person can rise without education, such as in the hospitality industry. You can be a CEO of a major tourist hospitality business without any qualifications. There are but most technically orientated people, you can't do that kuzo. Yabo? Lendo dan city very soon namachita into azayenza azawuthi hayi comrade Mkhuseli uyavana mos no Dr. Bovungana or whatever ichomi yakho Dr. Bov uyathetha nawe ungasukuyomjonga nje for a day and then sakunika idyasi emhlophe nawe ustart ke ngokufake la way. I mean, because that's where we're going now. Yeah? Because abantu, there are no standards. We will set standards.
I was just about to ask you, Mkhulwa, sorry. I was just about to ask you, perhaps how Nelson Mandela Bay and other non-functioning municipalities would need to be fixed up is taking a few steps backward to ask critically some fundamental questions, including questions like what went wrong, so that we don't find ourselves going that particular same route. Is it important we aim ukubuza lo mibuzo what went wrong? And indeed, and indeed, Mkhulwa, what went wrong? We have a few minutes remaining, but and even if we have to do part 2 of this conversation, I'm fine with that. But I think it's important that we look in the mirror as the Black liberators of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. You also are very active in the ANC in the past. What went wrong that we find ourselves in this quagmire? That lo masipala beyinhlekisa, anybody and any party want to contest lo masipala kumuthuli kwilondo. What went wrong?
No, what here in the metro, the trouble started with, as you know, when Neba Faku left as a mayor, Faku was given sufficient latitude to do his job well. And he was allowed to excel. The conditions and the system backed him to do so. But unfortunately, when he got out, he didn't provide that to the others, those who came after him. Instead, he came in and tried to break what I call the consistent application and implementation of good governance by a blatant interference into the administration of the metro, and he wanted to blend it with the ANC as Standard House. Whereas, as you know, the municipality got clear rules how you operate as a political party far away, and then you will have your councillors that you send in, which you have to work within and achieve what is intended and what must be done by the municipality. You understand? You cannot uthi ungapha ANC office eLuthuli House or
Standard House.
House. Yeah. Then what we did, he was interfering with the mayors that were there. And as a consequence of that, because of the pandemonium and commotion he was causing, that led to a fall in the discipline of everybody in the system, including staff, professional staff. And then waqalisa ke ngokuxhuthwa umuntu athi kodwa suka sonke siyafana singamalungu ANC ungakulinge undixelele noma ndifike exesha emsebenzini. When you tell me, hey Khusta, you are supposed to uthi no bendisenhlanganisweni ngozipeqengeshe phezulu this thing. Then you see, you are supposed to be fired if you are going to arrive late. Meetings aim. You should be fired. Then once you do not allow that discipline breakdown, then you enforce authority schedule, whereby every decision that is taken according to what is decided there. Not of who can talk or decisions. That will not happen. Once we take over, immediately everything will go according to what is in the book by everyone. By everyone. You will see the morale of the staff, you will see the security of abasebenzi. I was finished by yes. This is what we love, to serve our community, not serving Khusta Jack, serving political parties. That's not his role. His role is to serve the residents. And that is what we are trying to bring in with AIM here. We're going to just enforce. I know it's a bitter pill. And for this, I don't need a vote from anyone who believes that I shouldn't do what I'm talking about. If anyone wants me to allow Vulazibuke and make this thing to decay further than what it is, forget it. I'd rather have not a single vote. I will not change my language in order to suit the people who think that corruption can benefit them. That's nonsense. Corruption will not even benefit Wenasela in the long term. As you can see, it will never. You can steal and steal. You will steal from 2010. You will never stop. No, we are not going to do that.
His name is Khusta Jack, Mkhuseli Jack. He was my guest today. Had a fantastic conversation. Nomkhuluwa, I must say. Well, abantu Mkhuluwa bebengena abanye besitsho, as you can see, umava and Tsobodi City, there's a new province coming up in Mzansi, and it's called NMB Bay under AIM. Viva Khusta, Viva. Mkhuluwa, I think when you unpacked why AIM in El Gamalika integrity in it, I need to say that one of the things that we need to restore in terms of quality leadership, you question your integrity. It's lacking in South Africa, it's lacking in politics, it's lacking in religion, it's lacking in sport, it's lacking in the private sector, it's lacking in cultural and traditional affairs, in the integrity. You killed me with this thing, your integrity. It worries me that there is a serious decay of leadership in South Africa because we've compromised integrity. Your plan, therefore, to make sure that Lomasipala will be led, amongst other things, in a value system, in a integrity. It sort of rounds up the conversation for today. Let us agree. So far, this was part one. And that in the long run, Kuluwa, we will come knocking and ask you to take us further to part two, so we may cover other aspects of part two. It is said that councillors, ikhona into wrong nyani kwi-system yethu. I-councillor iyakwazi uba kufika uminister of housing agcwalise kugcwale kudenqeqe stadium, kubekho lo sisi okanye lo bhuti uzawukwazi uba athethe boldly against umphathiswa, ashawutise athini tukutuku xa kufunwa i-councillor kunyulwa laa mntu because wathuka iminister, kunyulwe laa mntu. Inye into abalasela ngayo iminister, unyulwe laa mntu. Ngoku uyafika ecouncileni, ngoku uyozela phaa xa sisenza i-strategic planning, uyozela ngoku. So there is something fundamentally wrong with our system. So there is, I agree with you. In the integrity is very important. Nimgqibelelo sisi ethuka unomvula mkonyane edenqeqe. Xa nithi niyeva seyikhansile. Hey, Kuluwa, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much. I'll keep in touch, and then we have to do part two sometime. Thank you, Mkuluwa.
Thank you.
Khusta Jack. He was my guest today on Padma Fani Conversations, SA Leaders. Okay, comments Zola Antonio said Jojo Hamadoda Nasi Kogelo. Nasi is Kogelo Tinasha, and then said, I trust you, Khusta. Zola Kaluzi Posilicho Khusta, you are just spot on. And it is very sad in Nelson Mandela Bay, no sense of agency about the development, even including sport, entertainment, infrastructure. I get a waste is beyond control. A city powerful. Okay, Only are young people that are representing the business sector, particularly development of black businesses in Nelson Mandela Bay. We will have a part 2 definitely, and Umanele Simgoni Esida will watch this again. Thank you, Mr. Nafani. Thanks, folks, and thanks, Nakum Kulua. Good night, take care, and we love you. We'll see you next Thursday again with SA Leaders.